Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar.
So let's go back to the beginning. The first thing upon the dunya. This first thing was from nothing. Before then, we just had water. We had sky. We had the earth underfoot with stones, but we did not have a single living thing. There was not a single tree. There was not a single living thing upon the dunya. Just like the Quran says, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, be, and it was. Everything, the first thing from creation was suddenly there. The first form of life was spontaneously created into being. 200 genes in that first thing. From nothing, from inanimate nothingness with zero genes, zero replication, zero biology. Suddenly we had life, and in that life was DNA. DNA that was so perfect, it still exists to today. DNA is a perfect living work of art. Now, what was in that first DNA? Well, in order for people to believe in evolution, right, and I do believe that things change. I'm not discounting evolution, but evolution, in order for that to exist, we need to understand one thing about DNA. The same DNA exists in me and you as that exists in a fruit fly. Yes, do you hear me correct? 60% of our DNA is the same as in grass, as in a fruit fly, as in a wombat, as in that little microbes scratching its way across the floor. Anything living has 60% of its base DNA from the first point of reference. Now we think about that. Wait, that means 60%. That would mean that the first life form that ever created into being had a DNA structure that was 60% of our DNA. That means it had all the building blocks shoved in there. It didn't just come from nothing and have a few building blocks and built up to what we have. No, it had all the building blocks shoved in there all at once. We're talking about suddenly nothing to having not just something, but to having more than something, plus something more. We're talking about nothing having been there, and then suddenly we have something with 200 genes. Then we have something with this work of art that we have called DNA, which is 60% of the DNA we have today. Then consider this. DNA live updates simultaneously across the planet. A lot of people are, what does that mean? Is it online? Can I look it up? Well, I'll show you what it means. You see, if you take the DNA of two people on opposite sides of the dunya, on opposite sides of the earth, you'll find that both of them have simultaneously the same human DNA characteristics, which means that those people who've never met, those two people who have families who never met, those two people can be on completely different tribes. You can take them from the most isolated tribe, and they have not bred with anyone outside the tribe for 1,000 years. You take the DNA, and you'll find that the DNA markers that mark them as being human have simultaneously updated at the same time as the markers of a regular person walking around today with mixed DNA. The human marker simultaneously updates for all human beings across the planet. But that's not where it ends. You see, the DNA markers for every species simultaneously updates for every member of that species, no matter where they are upon the earth. Species of one cat, a lion, let's say, that breeds for 100 years in the West, in zoos, and a wild lion from Africa will simultaneously be the same. Their genetic markers that link them out as that species are linked. And you think if evolution were true, then every newborn would be struggling to be different. Every newborn would be fighting to change, to adapt, to be different. Yet, scientists will tell you, well, adaptation takes ages. Adaptation, evolution takes thousands of years. I'll take you to the example of the dolphin. I will use the tool of the scientist here. The dolphin. The dolphin, hundreds of thousands of years ago, according to science, was once a wolf-like creature. and then its land started flooding. So it eventually, according to scientists, adapted. Now the land didn't flood at once. No, it flooded over the course of 100 years. Now an animal, you take an animal today, you put it in an environment where it floods in 100 years, that animal will straight up die. But these animals, they were meant for something more. So they changed at the same rate that their environment changed. Now that's strange, isn't it? Let's look at the farmer's worst nightmare, the aphid. Aphid, the little buggers that like to get onto the plants, they eat them away, and they just plain annoying. That's why farmers love ladybirds, because ladybirds eat aphids. But let's take an aphid. Let's take a plant with aphids. You put it next to a window in an environment where the aphids can no longer spread and leave. The aphids will grow wings. They will simultaneously adapt to the environment and grow wings. These are a wingless species. They do not have wings, but they'll gain wings and leave. You see, the environment actually changes the nature of the thing. And yet, you take those aphids with wings and test their DNA to any regular aphid you take in your garden, and it'll be exactly the same. You see, there are things changing in the environment. Everything changes to the degree that the environment changes. Now people are like, wait, what? That doesn't make sense. And how does that prove that God is related? Well, you see, in order for the DNA of the thing to change at the same rate the environment changes, that would mean that there is something controlling the DNA. You see, the animal does not know that it's going to flood in this area. And the animal does not know it's going to continue to flood. Humans would know, because we are intelligent. We can look at things, we can do estimates, we can use computers that we invented. Humans are intelligent, so we know. But the animal, their body and their brain does not know. Their body does not tell them, well, this is flooding and it's going to get worse until the point I have to go underwater. See that dolphin we mentioned earlier? Its body did not know. It would have, in fact, if evolution were to be true, the area would have flooded, the dog would have had nowhere to go, and it would have drowned. That would have been the simple truth. But no, its body adapted at the same rate the environment adapted, which means that there's something in control of the environment and there's something in control of the DNA. And it changed the two simultaneously. Now what does that mean for us? Well, if there's something in control of DNA, then that itself proves that there's a higher force greater than the DNA. Furthermore, if you look at the core of any being, that DNA came from nothing, which we as Muslimin understand that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said be, and it was. That in itself proves Islam, because it is an aspect of Islam that is taught that we Muslims understand that it's not until Allah says be, then it is. So in this case, the first living creature was nothing until Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala came. And in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's mercy, He didn't just grant the first creature one or two genes. He didn't grant them a flickering half fragment of DNA. No, He mercifully gave them full DNA. He gave them 200 genes for the first thing. He created a masterpiece out of the first piece of life. Now if you want to tell me that that first piece of life magically came about through the use of radiation that we don't understand, I'm talking science, not science fiction. In science fiction there's magic radiation. There's magical forces in the universe which can turn the inanimate into animate. If you want to believe these things, go play Dungeons and Dragons. We're talking about the real world. In the real world, things either are or they're not. Things are either inanimate or they're animate and biological. And we know that the first thing, there was nothing and then there was. That in itself is a proof that in order for that to happen, there would be a force greater than it for it to say be, and it was. Furthermore, the perfection of DNA, this work of art, this living miracle in our blood, is a further proof. For this thing would not have evolved over time. It would have been so chaotic, it would have been so broken, that everything at the beginning would have been so broken and barely able to survive it wouldn't have survived, and therefore life would not have existed. So there we have it. I've proven the existence of a divine creator through the use of DNA. Join me next time and we will discover another aspect of science to which will amaze and astound and abound. This is Come to Goodness. Feel free to leave me a comment in the section below. Hit subscribe and remember, come to goodness.